In the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, where endless dunes shimmer beneath the burning sun, there lies a mystery that has haunted explorers, historians, and dreamers for more than 1,000 years. A city whispered about in ancient scriptures and legends, a city said to have defied the heavens themselves. Its name was Ubar, or as some called it, Iram of the Pillars, the Atlantis of the Sands. For centuries, Bedouin travelers told stories of this lost kingdom. They spoke of towering columns that reached toward the sky, of walls made of stone and marble, and of a city so wealthy that its markets overflowed with gold and incense. But they also spoke of its fall, a punishment from God that swallowed Ubar whole beneath the sands. To some, it was just a myth. To others, it was a warning. In the early 1990s, a man named Nicholas Clapp, a documentary filmmaker and amateur archaeologist, found himself obsessed with this legend. He had spent years studying forgotten civilizations and reading the ancient texts of Arabia. One day, while rereading the Quran, he came across a verse that described a people called Ewith who built great pillars and were punished for their arrogance. Something inside him stirred. Could this be the same city the Bedouins spoke of? Could Iram of the Pillars, this fabled kingdom, still be hidden beneath the sands of Oman? Nicholas Clapp was not a man who gave up. Easily, he contacted NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and asked for access to their satellite imaging data. It sounded impossible, even crazy, but the scientists were intrigued. Using newly developed radar technology, they began scanning the southern Arabian desert, the empty quarter, or Rub al-Khali, one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. No one in their right mind would venture there without reason. But Clapp had a reason. He was chasing a ghost. Weeks turned into months. Then, one day, a series of faint lines appeared on the satellite scans. They weren't natural formations. They were ancient caravan routes, long forgotten and buried under sand, and all of them converged on a single point. Deep in the Dhofar region of Oman, Clapp's heart raced. If those routes led anywhere, it had to be important, so he assembled a small team of archaeologists, geologists, and local Bedouins, and together they set out toward the coordinates the satellites had revealed. Their destination, a small place called Shirzard. To outsiders, it looked like nothing. A few old ruins, a well, and a fort. But to the locals, Shizr had always been rumored to sit atop something ancient, something powerful that the desert refused to forget. When the team began digging, they didn't expect much, but only a few meters below the surface, the sand began to change color, from pale gold to darker, compact layers filled with shards of pottery and stone. Then, they hit something solid. As the excavation continued, the outline of massive stone walls emerged, followed by fragments of pillars, stairways, and what looked like collapsed towers. It was unlike anything seen in the Arabian desert before. The archaeologists uncovered evidence of a once thriving settlement, an ancient trading hub connected to the frankincense route, the same network of trade that supplied incense to Egypt, Rome, and even Jerusalem. There were broken jars still carrying traces of frankincense resin and pottery that dated back thousands of years. This wasn't a myth. This was a city, and it had been buried for nearly 2 millennia. News of the discovery spread like wildfire. Headlines across the world called it the Atlantis of Arabia. For the first time, modern science had given substance to what had long been dismissed as legend. But for the local Bedouins, there was no surprise. They had always believed the stories. One elder was quoted saying, "The sands remember everything. You just have to listen long enough." And yet, even as the world celebrated, the archaeologists knew something was strange. The site wasn't just the remains of a small fortress. It was far larger, deeper, and older than anyone expected. And below the surface, radar scans showed hollow spaces, massive underground voids that no one could explain. What had happened here? Why had this city vanished so completely from history? And what secrets still lay buried beneath its ruins? Nicholas Clapp stood at the edge of the excavation pit, watching the desert winds swirl around the ruins like ghosts of the past. He knew they had found something extraordinary, but he also sensed that Ubar was not ready to reveal all its secrets. As the sun set behind the dunes, the air turned gold and silent. The sound of the desert felt alive. Whispering, almost breathing, Clapp turned to his journal and wrote one sentence that night. The legend was real, but legends never die easily. He was right, because Ubar had just awakened from its slumber, and the desert was not done telling its story. When the first walls of Ubar were uncovered, the world called it a miracle. But as archaeologists dug deeper into the ruins, that miracle began to feel like a warning. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. A city built on wealth, power, and ambition, yet destroyed by the very ground beneath it. Under the scorching sun of southern Oman, the excavation continued day after day. Layers of sand peeled away like the pages of a forgotten book, revealing chambers, foundations, and objects untouched for centuries. But what struck the team most was not what they found. It was how it had all collapsed. Massive chunks of stone had fallen inward, as if the earth itself had swallowed the city whole. One geologist on Clapp's team noticed something unusual in the soil composition. The ground beneath Ubar was limestone, porous and unstable, the kind that could easily form underground caverns over time. And then the truth began to surface. The city had been built directly on top of a massive sinkhole. For generations, its people had unknowingly lived above a hollow world. Trade caravans, heavy with incense and treasure, passed over it for centuries, until one day, the earth simply gave way. The city that defied the heavens had fallen into the depths below. To the scientists, it was a geological disaster, but to the people of the desert, it was divine justice. For generations, Bedouin storytellers had warned that Ubar's rulers had become arrogant, that they claimed to rival heaven itself, and that their pride brought down a punishment from above. The Quran tells of Makrondi, a people who built mighty pillars in the land of Iram, and who were destroyed by a furious wind as a lesson to mankind. Now, for the first time, archaeologists wondered, had they uncovered the very city that inspired that ancient story? As excavations continued, the ruins revealed signs of immense prosperity. There were remains of large storage rooms, indicating vast supplies of frankincense, the resin that was once worth its weight in gold. Every major civilization of the ancient world, Egyptians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans, traded for the sacred substance used in temples and rituals. Ubar had been the beating heart of that trade. It stood at the crossroads of caravan routes that stretched for thousands of kilometers, from Yemen to Mesopotamia, from the Red Sea to the Persian Gulf. No wonder it had become a symbol of power and greed. But then the trade declined. New sea routes opened, empires shifted, and the desert grew harsher. The city's towers began to crumble, the wells dried up, and finally, as if history itself wanted to erase its memory, the sands rose and swallowed what was left. Still, there were mysteries the archaeologists could not explain. Among the ruins, they found artifacts that didn't belong, ornaments and tools crafted with techniques foreign to Arabia. Some pieces seemed closer to Mesopotamian or even Egyptian design, hinting that Ubar's influence may have stretched far beyond the Arabian Peninsula. There were inscriptions too, strange symbols carved into fragments of stone. Some appeared to be early forms of South Arabian script, but others matched nothing known in the region. Were they traders' marks, religious symbols, or something else entirely? The deeper the team searched for answers, the more the desert seemed determined to guard its secret. By 1993, the media frenzy began to fade, funding slowed, and the excavation site at Shizr grew quiet once more. The winds filled the pits with sand, and the ruins of Ubar disappeared again, just as they had for nearly 2,000 years. But Nicholas Clapp couldn't let it go. He wrote in his notes, "Every time we think we've reached the end of the story, the desert shifts, and a new chapter begins." He believed Ubar wasn't just a lost city. It was a mirror of humanity, a reminder that every empire, no matter how mighty, eventually falls to the same forces of nature and time. Even now, decades later, scientists debate what truly happened at Shizr. Was Ubar a single city, or a network of trade posts that together formed the fabled Iram? Did the sinkhole mark its end, or was it already dying when the earth collapsed beneath it? The answers may never come. The desert doesn't easily surrender its mysteries. But one thing is certain. Ubar's story is not just one of loss, it's a story of rediscovery, of faith colliding with science, and of how legends shape the way we see the world. Because in every grain of sand, there lies a fragment of something once great, and every legend, no matter how ancient, begins with a truth that refuses to die. Years passed after the discovery of Ubar. The excitement faded, the journalists left, and the wind returned to its eternal dance over the dunes. But silence in the desert is never just silence. Sometimes, it's the pause between secrets. After the main excavation site at Shizr was closed in the mid-1990s, a handful of researchers continued to study the data left behind. Satellite scans, soil samples, and thousands of photographs. One night, while comparing radar imagery, a young geographer noticed something strange. A series of faint geometric lines stretching outward from the main ruins, forming what looked like a compass etched into the earth itself. At first, they assumed it was natural erosion. But the lines were too perfect, too deliberate. When they overlaid the pattern on ancient trade maps, the lines pointed directly toward the Mediterranean Sea, the old route of the incense trade that once made Ubar rich. Could it be that the builders of Ubar had created a massive stone compass to guide caravans across the empty quarter? Or was it something deeper? A symbol of their belief that their empire stood at the center of the world. Over time, more questions emerged than answers. Within the site, strange artifacts surfaced, small, sealed clay jars containing what looked like rolled parchments preserved by resin. When examined under infrared light, faint inscriptions became visible: maps of stars, unfamiliar constellations, and diagrams that hinted at advanced astronomical knowledge. The discovery stunned historians. How could a desert civilization, isolated from the centers of ancient science, possess such understanding of the heavens? Had Ubar been merely a trade hub, or something more? Perhaps a sanctuary of knowledge, a crossroads where merchants, priests, and scholars exchanged not only goods but ideas. Some researchers believed the city's downfall was linked not only to geology but to secrecy, that the rulers of Ubar hoarded wisdom considered forbidden, and that their pursuit of divine power led to their destruction. Ancient texts from Mesopotamia speak of a city of pillars, where men tried to capture the stars and were buried for their pride. The parallels were uncanny. Others suggested something even stranger, that remnants of Ubar's knowledge survived long after its fall, carried northward by travelers who spoke of a hidden city consumed by the earth. Centuries later, these stories might have reached Europe. During the time of the Templar Knights, records mention expeditions into the east, searching for relics of the old world. In a 12th century manuscript preserved in France, there is a cryptic note describing a sunken city in the sands of Arabia, where wisdom older than the prophets sleeps beneath fallen towers. Could it be that the Templars were chasing the same mystery that modern archaeologists rediscovered 8 centuries later? Nicholas Clapp himself, before his death, reflected on the experience in an interview. We went looking for a myth and found evidence of memory. But I suspect what we truly uncovered was not just a city. It was our own need to believe that legends come from somewhere real. Those words resonated deeply with everyone who followed the story, because Ubar is more than a ruin. It's a mirror, reflecting humanity's endless struggle between faith and fact, between the desire to understand the past and the fear of what it might reveal. The sands of Arabia hold more than bones and stones. They hold the memory of ambition and the echo of punishment. Every grain whispers the same warning, that power, when mixed with pride, always ends buried. Today, satellites still pass, quietly over southern Oman. New imaging technologies reveal faint traces of structures beyond the known ruins, lines forming grids that stretch for kilometers, suggesting that what was found at Shizr may have been only the edge of a far greater city. Some scientists believe entire sections of Ubar remain underground, hidden within collapsed caverns that no human has touched in thousands of years. Others think the true Ubar was not a single place but a network, a constellation of cities united by trade and belief, all lost to the desert when the climate changed and empires fell. Whatever the truth, the mystery endures. The desert gives glimpses, then takes them back that it buries answers under layers of silence, waiting for the next dreamer brave enough to listen. At dusk, the wind returns to the empty quarter. The sun bleeds into the dunes, turning them into waves of molten gold. For a moment, you can almost hear voices. Merchants shouting, camels groaning, bells ringing, and the faint scent of frankincense carried on the air. Then, as quickly as it came, the illusion fades. The world goes quiet again. But deep beneath the sands, beneath centuries of time and memory, the city still breathes. Somewhere below, in the buried chambers of Ubar, stone pillars still stand, forgotten, waiting for light, waiting for truth, because legends never die, they only sleep. Every desert hides its secret, every ruin hides a story, and every story, no matter how deeply buried, will one day rise again with the wind. Thank you for watching. If you believe that myths hide truth and that forgotten worlds still wait to be found, then join us on this journey through time and mystery. Subscribe now to Dreamecho Stories for more cinematic tales of lost civilizations, hidden knowledge, and the timeless connection between legend and reality.